I never believed in love at first sight until I saw him standing there, sunlight catching in his dark hair as he gently scolded his daughter for climbing too high on the playground equipment. "Be careful, Lily," he said with that smile, that devastatingly calm smile that would soon become my undoing. Little did I know that this man would become my boss, my forbidden crush, and eventually, the love of my life. But the journey there? It nearly cost me everything. If you're enjoying this story of forbidden workplace romance and the complications of falling for a single dad, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more emotional real-life stories that will tug at your heartstrings. Your support means the world to me. My name is Emma Mitchell, and 6 months ago, I was just another struggling graduate desperately searching for a job in the cutthroat world of architectural design. My student loans were piling up, my roommate was threatening to kick me out, and my portfolio, while decent, wasn't exactly turning heads at the prestigious firms I'd been applying to. That's when I saw the listing, junior designer needed at Mitchell & Associates. The pay was decent, the commute manageable, and most importantly, they were willing to take a chance on someone fresh out of school. I polished my resume, gathered my best work, and walked into that interview with more confidence than I actually felt. The receptionist, an older woman named Marge with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, led me to a conference room. "Mr. Mitchell will be with you shortly," she said. "He's running a bit late, school emergency with his daughter." I nodded, trying to hide my nervousness as I arranged my portfolio on the table. Single dad, I thought. That explained the family photos I'd noticed in the reception area. I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't hear the door open behind me. "Ms. Reynolds? I'm James Mitchell. Sorry to keep you waiting." I turned around and froze. It was him, the man from the playground I'd noticed last weekend while I was sketching in the park. The man whose gentle parenting and warm laugh had caught my attention from across the playground. The man whose face had somehow worked its way into my daydreams over the past few days. He didn't seem to recognize me, which was a small mercy. I managed to stammer through introductions, my cheeks burning as I tried to focus on anything but his kind brown eyes and the way his rolled-up sleeves revealed strong forearms. The interview proceeded professionally enough, though I caught myself staring at his hands more than once as he flipped through my portfolio. "Your work shows promise," he said finally, closing my portfolio and fixing me with that calm, assessing gaze. "But I need someone who can commit fully to this position. We're a small firm, and everyone wears multiple hats. I'm also a single father to a 7-year-old daughter, which means sometimes our hours can be unpredictable." "I understand," I said quickly. "I'm ready for the challenge. This is exactly the opportunity I've been looking for." He studied me for a moment longer, then nodded. "Let's give it a trial run. Can you start Monday?" Just like that, I had a job. And just like that, I was in trouble. The first few weeks passed in a blur of learning curves and late nights. James, Mr. Mitchell, as I forced myself to think of him, was a demanding boss but a fair one. He pushed me to refine my designs, challenged my thinking, and never accepted anything less than my best work. The small office consisted of just 5 people: James, Marge the receptionist/office manager, 2 senior designers named Paul and Diane, and now me. It didn't take long to learn the rhythms of the office. James arrived precisely at 8:30 each morning, after dropping his daughter Lily at school. He left promptly at 4:30 to pick her up, unless there was a deadline looming, in which case Lily would come to the office, setting up camp in the small conference room with her homework and art supplies. The first time I met Lily properly was 3 weeks into my employment. A school closure had forced James to bring her to work, and she bounded into the office with all the energy of a small hurricane. "You must be Emma," she declared, standing in front of my desk with her hands on her hips. "Daddy says you're really good at drawing buildings." I couldn't help but smile. "That's right. And you must be Lily. Your dad talks about you all the time." Her face lit up. "Really? What does he say?" "That you're the smartest, bravest 7-year-old he knows." She beamed, revealing a missing front tooth. "I'm almost 8. Do you want to see my drawings? I'm not good at buildings yet, but I can draw really good unicorns." Before I could answer, James appeared in the doorway of his office. "Lilybug, let Emma work. She's on a deadline." "It's okay," I said quickly. "I'd love to see her drawings." James gave me a grateful smile, that smile that made my stomach flip, and retreated to his office. Lily promptly dragged a chair over to my desk and spent the next hour showing me her artwork while I tried to finish my renderings. By the end of the day, I had a new friendship bracelet on my wrist and a growing ache in my chest. Because the more I got to know James Mitchell, the more I admired him. He wasn't just talented and hardworking, he was a devoted father who structured his entire life around his daughter's needs. I learned through office chatter that his wife had left them when Lily was just 2, unable to handle the responsibilities of parenthood. Instead of becoming bitter, James had thrown himself into being the best father he could be. I tried to maintain professional boundaries. I really did. But it became increasingly difficult to ignore the flutter in my chest whenever he leaned over my shoulder to review my work, or the way my day brightened when he brought coffee for everyone and remembered exactly how I liked mine. 2 months into my employment, disaster struck. We were working late on a major proposal, just the 2 of us in the office. Lily was at a sleepover, giving James the rare opportunity to work past his usual departure time. I was exhausted, having been at my desk for nearly 12 hours straight. "You should go home, Emma," James said, noticing my stifled yawn. "You've done more than enough today." "I'm fine," I insisted. "I want to finish this section." He studied me for a moment, then nodded. "At least take a break. There's leftover pizza in the break room fridge." I gratefully retreated to the small kitchen area, microwaved a slice of pizza, and sat down at the table. Without meaning to, I found myself staring at the family photos James had hung on the wall. James and Lily at the beach. James and Lily building a snowman. James looking younger and carefree, his arm around a pretty woman who must have been Lily's mother. I was so lost in thought that I didn't hear him enter the room. "That was taken the summer before Lily was born," he said quietly, making me jump. "Before everything fell apart." "I'm sorry," I stammered, embarrassed at being caught staring. "I didn't mean to pry." He waved away my apology and sat down across from me, running a hand through his already disheveled hair. "It's ancient history now. Catherine wasn't ready for the reality of parenthood. She wanted to travel, build her career. A colicky baby and a husband working overtime to support the family wasn't part of her plan." "That must have been incredibly difficult," I said softly. "It was," he admitted. "But in some ways, it was a relief when she finally left. The constant fighting, the tension in the house, it wasn't good for any of us, especially Lily." He gave a rueful smile. "Sorry, I don't know why I'm telling you all this." "I don't mind," I said, perhaps too quickly. "Sometimes it's easier to talk to someone who wasn't there, who doesn't have any preconceptions." Our eyes met across the table, and for a moment, something electric passed between us. Then he cleared his throat and stood up. "We should get back to work," he said, his professional demeanor firmly back in place. "That proposal won't finish itself." The next day, I couldn't stop thinking about our conversation, about the vulnerability he'd shown me. It felt like something had shifted between us, though I couldn't quite define what. I found myself watching him more closely, noticing the way his brow furrowed when he was concentrating, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. It was Diane, one of the senior designers, who first called me out on it. "You're playing with fire, Emma," she warned me one day over lunch. "I've seen the way you look at him." "I don't know what you're talking about," I protested weakly. She gave me a knowing look. "James is a good man, and a great boss. But he's also your boss, and he's got enough complications in his life without adding a workplace romance to the mix." I knew she was right, but knowing something and feeling something are two very different things. I resolved to be more careful, to keep my feelings firmly in check. For a while, I succeeded. Then came the Henderson project. A high-profile client wanted to renovate a historic building downtown, turning it into luxury apartments while preserving its architectural integrity. It was exactly the kind of challenge I'd dreamed of working on, and to my surprise, James assigned me as the lead designer, with himself as the project manager. "Are you sure?" I asked, stunned by the opportunity. "Paul or Diane have more experience." "They do," he agreed. "But this is your aesthetic. Your portfolio was full of adaptive reuse projects. I think you're the right person for this job." His faith in me was both exhilarating and terrifying. We began spending more time together, reviewing plans, visiting the site, meeting with the client. Each interaction only deepened my growing feelings for him, feelings I knew were inappropriate and potentially career-ending. The situation came to a head 3 months later. We were at the Henderson building, just the two of us, taking final measurements before submitting our revised plans. The space was dusty and dim, with shafts of late-afternoon sunlight streaming through the tall windows. James was across the room, making notes on his tablet, while I sketched some details of the original molding. "Emma," he called. "Can you come look at this?" I crossed the room to where he stood in front of an ornate fireplace that had been hidden behind drywall during a previous renovation. "What do you think?" he asked, gesturing to the intricate stonework. "Worth preserving?" "Absolutely," I breathed, running my fingers over the detailed carvings. "It's beautiful." "That's what I thought you'd say." His voice had softened, and when I looked up, I found him watching me with an intensity that made my heart race. We were standing close, too close. I could smell his cologne, could see the faint stubble on his jaw. Without thinking, I swayed toward him. He stepped back abruptly. "We should head back to the office," he said, his voice suddenly brisk. "It's getting late." The drive back was silent and uncomfortable. When we arrived at the office, he disappeared into his private office without another word, leaving me confused and embarrassed. Had I imagined that moment between us? Had I crossed a line? The next morning, James called me into his office as soon as I arrived. "Close the door, please," he said, his expression unreadable. I did as he asked, my stomach in knots. "Emma, I think we need to discuss professional boundaries," he began, not quite meeting my eyes. My face burned with humiliation. "I'm sorry about yesterday." He held up a hand to stop me. "Nothing happened yesterday. But I think we both know something could have, and that's a problem." I nodded miserably. "I value your work," he continued. "You're talented, dedicated, and you've become an essential part of this team. I don't want to lose that. But I'm your boss, and more importantly, I'm a father. My priority has to be creating a stable environment for Lily." "I understand," I said quietly. "So from now on, I think it's best if we maintain strictly professional interactions. No more late nights alone in the office. No more one-on-one site visits. And no more." He hesitated, looking at me the way you sometimes do. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me whole. "I'm sorry," I whispered. His expression softened slightly. "Don't be sorry. Just be careful. One more peek like that, and I might have to fire you, for both our sakes." I nodded again, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. "That's all," he said gently. "You can go." I fled his office, locking myself in the bathroom until I could compose myself. I was mortified, heartbroken, and worst of all, I knew he was right. I was jeopardizing my career and potentially making his life more complicated, all because I couldn't control my feelings. For the next few weeks, I was the model employee. I arrived exactly on time, did my work efficiently, and interacted with James only when absolutely necessary. I volunteered to work with Paul on a new project, putting physical distance between James and myself. I even started half-heartedly dating a guy I met at a friend's party, hoping it would help me move on. It didn't. If anything, trying to avoid James only made me more aware of him. I noticed how tired he looked some mornings, the worry lines that appeared on his forehead when he got phone calls from Lily's school. I overheard him canceling meetings because Lily was sick, saw him working through lunch to make up for the time he'd miss leaving early for her dance recital. And despite my best efforts, I couldn't stop caring. The turning point came unexpectedly, nearly 6 months after I'd started working at Mitchell & Associates. It was a Friday afternoon, and I was deeply focused on finalizing some renderings when Marge appeared at my desk. "Emma, I hate to ask, but I need a huge favor," she said, her usually composed face creased with worry. "James just called. Lily's school called him. She fell during recess and might have broken her arm. He's taking her to the emergency room, but he was supposed to meet with the Henderson clients in an hour to go over the final plans." My heart sank. The Henderson project was too important to reschedule at the last minute. "Can Paul or Diane cover it?" Marge shook her head. "They're both at the zoning commission meeting downtown. It would have to be you." I took a deep breath. "Okay. I'll do it." "Did James leave the presentation materials?" "In his office," Marge said, relief evident in her voice. "He said to tell you that all the notes are on his tablet. The password is Lily's birthday." An hour later, I was sitting across from Mr. and Mrs. Henderson, walking them through our design plans with as much confidence as I could muster. To my surprise, the meeting went smoothly. The clients loved our vision for their building and were particularly impressed by some of the preservation details I'd incorporated. "James said you were the creative force behind this project," Mr. Henderson said as we wrapped up. "We can see why he speaks so highly of you." I blinked in surprise. "He does?" Mrs. Henderson smiled. "Oh yes. When we expressed concerns about working with such a small firm, he assured us that his team, particularly you, was more talented and dedicated than any corporate design factory." I felt a warm glow of pride as I thanked them and saw them out. As I was gathering up the presentation materials in the conference room, my phone buzzed with a text from James. "How did it go with the Hendersons?" I texted back, "Good, I think. They seemed pleased with the plans." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. "Finally, thank you for stepping in. Lily has a hairline fracture. We're still at the hospital waiting for the cast. Would you mind bringing my tablet to Children's Hospital when you're done? There are some files I need to review tonight." I hesitated only briefly before replying, "Of course. I'll head over now." The pediatric emergency room was chaotic and brightly colored, full of worried parents and injured children. I found James and Lily in a curtained area toward the back. Lily's face lit up when she saw me. "Emma! Look, I'm getting a purple cast," she exclaimed, holding up her arm where a doctor was in the process of applying plaster. "Very cool," I said, smiling at her enthusiasm despite the circumstances. "Purple is an excellent choice." James looked exhausted but grateful. "You're a lifesaver," he said quietly as I handed him the tablet. "The Hendersons really liked everything?" "They did. They're ready to move forward." He nodded, relief evident in his expression. "That's great news. This project could really put us on the map." We fell silent, watching as the doctor finished Lily's cast. Once he was done and had given James care instructions, we were free to go. "Have you eaten?" James asked me as we walked toward the parking lot. We were going.